All right, so let's jump right into this Gators game. Everyone wants the real deal on how they looked against Mississippi State, and you provided a very detailed set of notes on this one. And honestly, a 45-28 win doesn't tell the whole story. So get ready because we have a lot to unpack. Yeah, funny you say that because when you look at the box score, you might think it was a cakewalk, but watching the game showed a very different story. Yeah, the offense putting up some big numbers. You can't deny that 45 points gotta feel good about that on the surface. Absolutely. We have to talk about Graham Mertz going 15 for 16 with 3 touchdowns. That kind of efficiency is what Gators fans have been dreaming of. But here's the thing. We have to look at who those yards and touchdowns were against. Yeah, State's defense hasn't exactly been the 85 Bears. That's putting it mildly. They've been giving up yards and points. It's their job. They were statistically one of the worst defenses in the SEC coming into this game. And to make matters worse, they even got embarrassed by a team from the MAC earlier this season. Okay, for those who don't live and breathe college football, losing to a team outside the Power 5 conferences, especially one from the MAC, is a huge red flag. It's like a shark losing a swimming contest to a goldfish. Exactly. So while seeing the Gators' offense clicking was exciting, the million-dollar question is, can they replicate that offensive explosion against the big dogs of the SEC teams with real defenses? We'll have to wait and see, which brings us to the not-so-pleasant part of this whole conversation, and is the Gators' defense gave up 28 points. Giving up 28 points to a team that struggled to score against, well, anyone. This is where it gets really interesting and concerning. Remember that stat we mentioned about Mississippi State struggling to score? It's brutal how easily they moved the ball on the ground, especially up the middle. We're talking 5, sometimes 8 yards per carry. Yeah, the word awful comes to mind. And frankly, it's hard to argue with that assessment after watching the game. And it wasn't just the running game that was an issue, right? Even when Florida tried to dial up the pressure and get to the quarterback, it seemed like they were a step behind all night. And the video backed that up. It just looks like the defensive line is overmatched on every play. Not exactly what you want to hear, but your team's defense, especially in the SEC, that's about as damning an indictment as you can get. If you can't stop the run and you can't pressure the quarterback, you're in for a long season, especially in this conference. So offensively, it's a bit of a wait-and-see approach, but defensively, it sounds like some serious soul-searching needs to happen in Gainesville this week. Absolutely. And this is where coaching comes in. Are these struggles due to a lack of talent, scheme issues, or maybe even effort? Those are some of the questions the Gator staff will be dissecting this week. Big questions, no doubt. But before we completely write off the Gators, let's talk about a potential glimmer of hope. Freshman QB Lagway. Now this is where things get really interesting. Yeah, he comes in and you could feel the energy shift when he stepped on the field. And the stats definitely back it up. 7 for 7 passing, that's not a typo. And even a rushing touchdown, he did that. We do have to mention that fumble at the goal line. Seems even highlight reels need a little blooper sometimes. But you know what is really fascinating here is that he displayed that dual threat capability that Florida hasn't really had consistently at the quarterback position in a long time. It's early, obviously, only 4 games into the season. But with Mertz's experience and Lagway's talent, is there a quarterback controversy brewing in Gainesville already? It's certainly possible. And honestly, that kind of competition can be a great thing for a team. Iron sharpens iron, right? But let's not go handing Lagway the Heisman just yet. We need to see how he performs against a tougher defense. Remember, Mississippi State made a MAC team look like world beaters, right? Good point. Okay, so huge question here, stepping back from this one game. Are we seeing the Gators find their stride, or did they just feast on a weaker opponent? What does this game really tell us? 4 games into a season, it is too early to say for sure. Yeah, especially a team like Florida with a head coach still trying to forge their identity. Every Gator season feels like an emotional roller coaster. But this year just hits different. This game had a different feel, wouldn't you say? And this is where context is crucial. We can't just look at this game in a vacuum. The next few weeks are massive for Florida. They're staring down the barrel of their SEC schedule. And let me tell you, those opponents are in a whole other stratosphere compared to Mississippi State. No more cupcakes on the schedule. Exactly. Those upcoming games against the SEC elite. Those are the true litmus test. Can Mertz operate in that offense against top-rated defenses? Can the defense plug the holes and get pressure on the quarterback? Those are the big questions. And let's not forget about special teams. Remember, they have been so much better this season than in past seasons. It's these hidden details, often overlooked, that can make or break a season. Absolutely. It's not always the flashy plays that determine the outcome of a game. Sometimes it's the subtle mistakes, the missed assignments, the bad bounces of the ball. It's what makes these deep dives so valuable. We're going beyond the box score, dissecting the nuances, uncovering those hidden narratives that can often reveal so much more than the final score ever could. It's like they say, defense wins championships. The Gators are learning that one the hard way. Oh, it's the truest cliche in football, and for good reason too. Yeah, you know what I love about the SEC though? Just when you think you have them figured out, bam, you get blindsided. It's why we watch, right? The upsets and the just pure passion. It's enough to give anyone a heart attack. Speaking of, I can only imagine that defensive coordinator's stress level right now. If I were that guy, I'd be spending some serious overtime in the film room trying to figure out what went wrong against Mississippi State. Maybe living off large amounts of caffeine, right? But seriously, this deep dive has been interesting. It's like the Gators offense is firing on all cylinders, putting up points like it's 2009 yet. It's the defense, the very heart and soul of any championship team, that's giving everyone pause. It's a classic case of a team with incredible potential, but that one glaring weakness that could really hold them back, like a finely tuned sports car. But with a flat tire, you can have all the horsepower in the world, but it won't matter if you can't keep the rubber on the road. And the big question is, can they fix that flat tire before it's too late? Because the rest of those SEC opponents smell blood in the water. So for everyone listening, here's what to watch for these next few games. Keep an eye on that defense. Can they plug those gaps and slow down the run and force teams into predictable passing situations? And offensively, can they maintain that high-octane pace against the elite defenses of the SEC? It's one thing to carve up a struggling Mississippi State team, but it's quite another to do it against the likes of Georgia or Alabama. Those are the markers of a true contender. The Gators have shown flashes of brilliance in moments where you think this could be turning around, but they've also shown that vulnerability, that one crack in the armor that could derail their season. It's those upcoming games, those battles against the SEC elite, that will truly reveal the character of this Gator team. And who knows, maybe they'll rise to the occasion, silence the doubters, and show the world that they're more than just a one-dimensional offensive powerhouse. It's the SEC, baby, anything can happen. And that, my friends, is a wrap on another deep dive.